All right. So number 12?
Yeah, this is 12.
So this is podcast number 12. Wild Outside. We're here at OddStory. Big thanks to them. They give us free beer and a really cool place to do this podcast every week. Obviously, Wild Trails and L2 Outside are sort of the sponsors of it. Matt Sims is not here today, and he's usually key and instrumenting kind of the conversations as we go, which he's great at. But before I get to our awesome host or our awesome guest this Monday, a couple things. Wild Trails, we've got this Saturday is the River Road Rock Adventure Triathlon, and it is one of the coolest events of the year. Last year was our first year, and just kind of tested the theory with it. And I think we really got something good here. It is a 5K or a 10K paddle, 5K, 10K run, and then on the Walnut Street Bridge, there are 4 top ropes set up for the climbing piece. So if you're on the short version, you do 2 of the climbs, and if you're on the long version, you do all 4 climbs. And you can do it as an individual or as a team, and super cool fun. Big thanks to a lot of folks that are helping get that going, and certainly we're happy that it has been successful so far. And then next week is probably my favorite weekend of the year, the Chattanooga Mountain Stage Race. It's always Father's Day weekend. It's 60 miles over 3 days on 3 separate mountains, and it probably highlights the trails in Chattanooga probably better than any other event going on, single track, kind of running trails than any other event. And so anyway, both of those races are open, still open, and we have race day registration. So if you're interested, come on board. L2 got anything going on?
We're really excited about the race coming up this weekend with you guys. Other than that, this last weekend we've been getting so much rain, rentals were actually canceled. So we're looking forward to having another weekend of open rentals.
James, the guy with the handicap. Mm-hmm. So I took him out on Tuesday.
How did it go?
No. Wait. Was it Tuesday? Thursday. So it was going at 1 million gallons a second or whatever. It was really hauling. And he's a super strong guy. I thought, well, for sure, he's going to be good. And he was fine because we paddled, because it was like 30 minutes before the sun came up, before the official sun came up. It was light enough to paddle for a beginner. Paddled up. He was great. He was totally blown away by how cool it was, and he was fine. And he was on that big wide. I mean, it was on the Raven. No, that's what he wants to buy. But he got on the Raven, and then we went all the way down to Chattanooga Creek, and then up Chattanooga Creek ways because I knew it would be flooded. And just super cool trip to that point. And then we turned around and came back up, and we were in the eddy. It was. I got out in the current, and it was almost a treadmill. But when you're in the eddies, it was fine. But he struggled a little bit, and I can see that a lot of it is when you're starting paddleboarding. And I didn't really realize this before, but I had a big advantage because I've been a slackliner for many, many years. Mm-hmm. So I had those stabilizer muscles in my ankles already built, and I never really thought about that until I got to talking to him. I said, well, so what is it that made you want to kneel down? He says, well, I just don't have the muscles in my ankles. Right. I mean, he's an Ironman triathlete. So I thought, well, he's a super strong guy. I mean, he's a really solid athlete all around. But that goes back to the point of, you need stabilizer muscles. If you're going to be a trail runner or a paddler, you got to have those muscles that will balance you. So anyway,
for sure.
Ben Friberg is our guest, and before I go into his accolades a little bit, let me just tell you something about Ben. I don't think Wild Trails would be into paddling without Ben, the way it is now. I got into paddleboarding, and I got going with some buddies. It was great. We would go and paddle up for 30, 45 minutes and back down. It was a great workout. I enjoyed it a lot. And then I got to hear about Ben, and he's the ultra guy. I'm like, wait a minute, so what's he doing? And so, he paddled 234 miles or something like that in 24 hours. course, it was on the Yukon River. It was kind of hauling ass a little bit, right? So
Yeah,
it's going pretty fast.
Yeah.
But the only guy in the world ever to paddle from Cuba to the United States. I'm like, well, shit, what is this guy? So I got to meet him, super cool guy, and I'm like, if he can do this, I can do it. So I immediately skipped from like going and doing these 3, 4, 5 mile things from going dam to dam, 42 miles. I mean, because I'm an endurance athlete. I'm like, I can do this. I mean, it took me a little while to kind of get it. And certainly when I got a racing board, it took a little bit longer to get it because it's a different kind of balance. But once you get it, it's like literally you can be out there all day long, day after day after day. And so if it wasn't for Ben, I don't think I ever would have got to that point because there was no mentor. There was nobody doing this stuff, and nobody would have ever convinced me to go do it. But once I started doing it, then I started going across the state, and Ben talked me into doing this 80-mile paddle trip with he and his wife and a couple of buddies and fiance, I think, back then.
Yeah, she was my fiance.
And just really got me hooked. And I hate to say it, really, but I'm probably more of an ultra distance paddler now than I am a runner. I mean, I think my days of 100-mile trail races are probably over, but I haven't told you this already, but I'm ready for the Damn It 100.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
So it's basically dam to dam to dam.
Okay.
So you only have to portage over one. It's 103 miles. Perfect fit.
It's fun portage.
So anyway, Ben has just been he has been the main instigator for a lot of the growth in paddling and the founder of Chattajack. Chattajack's 31 miles. I'll let you tell all about Chattajack, but welcome to the podcast. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. What do you guys want to talk about?
Chattajack. Let's talk about the cool stuff first.
So yeah, Chattajack, this will be its 7th year, I guess. 2012 was the very first year, and we had just a little over 30 people participating that year. I created that race because I wanted to have a race that was kind of fun for myself. Everything that back then was more like in the 5 and 6 mile range, and I just wanted to do something that was fun, maybe a little bit of an adventure element to it. And so I just started mainly kind of calling some of my friends, asking them if they would be interested in participating, and a few of them said yes. And so, I was like, maybe we'll have 10 people or 15, whatever. And that was kind of what manifested that first year. There were a few folks, though, who came from North Carolina, from Florida, and then a few other states. I can't remember all the states that were there that first year, but some of those people who came were really key because they, experienced something that was very unique to them, and they went and because
they weren't long distance paddlers, really.
I don't know. I think probably one of the drawing factors was the idea of a point-to-point race. Also, the gorge was very unique. I mean, if people who are coming from coastal areas, especially East Coast coastal areas, they're not accustomed to seeing mountains around them and stuff. And so now all of a sudden they're doing what it is that they do, and there's mountains around them, and then they're also, the canyon is turning, and they're like have this map that we provide to them. And so it was just a very...
Well, before we go any further, describe the course, because I think most people don't know what Chattajack is at all.
Yeah, so Chattajack is it's a 31-mile paddle race that goes from Chattanooga to through the Tennessee River Gorge, ending at Nickajack Lake or Hales Bar Marina.
So you're not far from the lower dam.
Correct.
I mean,
you're
4 or 5 miles or something.
Yeah, water starts to get pretty stagnant down in that area. So we end kind of on the the upstream side of Nickajack Lake. So 31 miles. Some people might clock 32. Some people might clock 33 because they're going wide around the corners. So that's a little bit subjective about what the distance is. But if you cut all your corners and go straight lines, it's a 50K distance. And so obviously a ton of paddle boarders, anything that's high performance. People who are foreign to the idea of high performance paddle sports, I usually tell them, like, if you take a knife, it's flat, turn it on its edge, now you're talking high performance, something that's skinny, it's made to go straight and go really fast. But
yeah, I mean, you could be in a concrete canoe if you can do it fast enough, right? And there's no limitations except for the cutoff time, right?
Yeah, really. I mean, technically the only limitations that we have are like there's not like a fulcrum. So like where you're rowing or something like that, everything's just like single blade, and
you got to be forward facing, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a few unique situations where some people have requested to paddle like some 20-person crafts and like dragon boats and stuff like that, and we're not quite where we want to do that, and but still, it started out as a paddleboard race, and we have outrigger canoes out there, OC1s, OC2s, OC3s, 4s, and 6s, I believe. And then a ton of.
You had an OC6 last year?
Oh yeah, it was a couple of them.
Wow!
I think there's like maybe 4 or 5 registered for this race.
Nice.
Then obviously a lot of prone paddlers, which are the paddlers that are lying on their chest and just paddling with their hands, which is that's arguably probably one of the most difficult divisions to participate, just from the mechanics necessary to be able to propel that vessel for 31 miles. It's it's a long learning curve, I guess.
Yeah.
And then with you have surf skis and kayaks, and then we have canoes, or like traditional canoes, but even those are still high performance. And then stand-up paddle boards, unlimited for the men, unlimited 14 and 12.6. For the women, 14 and 12.6. The only thing that we do require is that they have a displacement hull instead of like a planing hull. In other words, basically no recreational type.
No surfboards.
Paddleboards. Yeah, it just wouldn't lend itself well to a good experience for somebody going through the gorge.
And if there's anybody that has a recreational board, surfboard,
mm-hmm.
and that might be strong doing this and would like to try it, so L2 would be a perfect place, because then you go get a displacement board, figure out what it's like and rent one from them, and then get in the race. So you don't have to necessarily own one.
Yeah, I think of paddling like probably like running, like a lot of runners do. It's just, with the right equipment, you can just kind of get into this sort of happy place in your mind where you can just go for a run, just go for a paddle, and and it's really not that big of a deal to go for a 4, 5, or 6 mile run. It's not that big of a deal to go for a 4, 5, 6 mile paddle. It's maybe not something that you would do every day because your body, it does have certain demands on it. But so even if you have a recreational board and you're paddling and you're learning all that, and then all of a sudden you go to some place and you rent a board and you're on a displacement board and you're just like, whoa, it's like a whole new ball game. It's kind of like all of a sudden you just put on a pair of proper running shoes that are so you can actually go for a true run, and
it's an eye-opening experience too when you get to that point and realize, hey, this is not a high-impact sport like trail running is. And as you get older, it's a awesome thing that for me especially to discover, because I really missed the days where I could go out and go run all day and all night and keep going again. And now I'm thinking, well, I don't know if I can do that anymore. I think I would like to. I'm not sure, but I know that my body's breaking down. But I'm super psyched about going all day and all night on a paddleboard. I know that it's a lot easier on your body. And one thing that has just jumped out to me that's just made all the difference in the world is your connection with nature. It's by far the best way to travel in nature, because you're usually on the shoreline, unless you're in a race or something. You want to be out, and like Chattajack, you want to kind of be out in the current. But if you don't really care about going fast, I stay right next to the shore, because that's where all the critters are. You get to see all the land-based animals and all the water-based animals. That's where all the birds are nesting right there, and it's just a great experience to just go out all day long by yourself, and you just kind of get immersed into nature, and it's just fantastic sport. So thank you for being such an instrumental part of bringing it to Chattanooga, because it's not only the best outdoor city in America, we've got to be the best flat water paddling city in America too. I mean, I count 77 miles of paddleable flat water creeks and rivers.
Sure.
And a lot of them aren't open yet because there's logs and stuff in the way, so we got to open them up and clear them, which we're doing now. But yeah, it's a great place to be for that kind of stuff. So what kind of cool adventures you got planned? Because this guy does something pretty epic every year. That's no question.
I personally, I guess about 2 years ago, started getting back into racing, or maybe just getting into racing a little bit more honestly for the first time. So that's kind of what a lot of my focus is on right now, is just paddling in the 6 mile range, trying to get it fast. That's why I'm drinking water right now, because I'm going to be out there in the heat in about 45 minutes. And, those guys that I try to keep up with, like, if I have to kind of, whether it's nutrition, whether it's hydration, 7 days a week, you're kind of like thinking a little bit about like recovery. How quick can I recover so I can go out for another paddle? This past Saturday, I paddled 3 times, 3 miles each time, just so that I could make the most of 9 miles in a day.
Sure.
And so I just really enjoy it. I was telling my buddy Hunt Jennings the other day, I loved paddling whitewater around the Chattanooga area. I did that for close to 20 years, and every time I went out, of course, you learn something about moving water and how you can use that to make yourself react in the way that it needs to get to the bottom of that rapid safely. And now I have progressed to flat water, and each time I go out, I'm focused purely on just my stroke and my body. And I spend a lot of time at home now with just a T-grip and a paddle shaft, no blade, and I'll sit there and study the mechanics subconsciously of a single stroke. And so that way, the next time I'm back out there on flat water, I'm practicing those things that I'm trying to envision or whatever. And so to me, I get a huge rush out of that. And then I go out there on flat water, and then some of those things start to happen, and it's a rush. And like some of my old kayaking friends are like, "Oh my gosh, Ben's completely lost his mind. He's crazy or whatever." And maybe so, but I'm having a lot of fun. Some of the guys too, I guess the biggest draw to me for whatever activity that I'm doing are the people that I surround myself with. And some of the guys that I've been fortunate to paddle with over the past couple years, Jeremy Whitted, recently John Batson, Trev Motts, Eric Bednors, all those guys, I really like those guys, because those guys inspire me to try and be a healthier, faster, fitter, whatever person. So I just turned 40 a couple weeks ago, and I feel like I'm leaner and whatever. So to answer your question, I don't have any big expeditions planned right now, but at the same time, by living a healthy lifestyle, I kind of feel like at any point in time, something could come up. And I definitely have a lot of things that at some point in time, I would love to do some things that I have on a bucket list, but I don't have not chomping at the bit right now to go and do any of those things. And even if I didn't, life has been amazing up to this point, and I'm
done a lot for sure.
Ben, quick question on paddles. On what you're talking about, using holding the shaft and working on your form and everything.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of debate on even paddle height, in the last couple years with people racing different distances. What's some of your recommendations just for paddling a lot and using different size paddles?
One of the things I would recommend is exactly what you just said, is try different sizes, because a lot of people have different strokes. I think some in the race community over the recent years, people have been going shorter and shorter, and so whereas a few years ago it it seemed like people were using a lot longer paddles. I was looking at some of my old paddles just a couple days ago, and I was just like, whoa, man, the T-grip was really high. And even the paddle that I use right now, I think a couple of my friends have thought, like, that's I'm surprised. I thought it would be, shorter or something like that. But I really, I almost feel like it's such a personal thing to that individual. I've been paddling, teaching one of my really good friends to paddle recently, and we've gone out a couple times in the past few days, and I have an adjustable paddle for him. So when we go out, that hopefully he can adjust it and then find that happy place for him. I'll talk about certain mechanics, like, okay, like let's try to keep your lower arm broken, like that's straight, that's bent, and that's broken. So let's keep it broken the whole time. You definitely don't want to do this. I mean, it's going to stay broken the whole time. Upper hand, let's not worry about that too much. Just find something that's, comfortable. And then, all the million other things. And, as we start paddling, I keep telling him this and this and this. And pretty soon there's like 20 things. And I'm like, you're never going to be able to, so let's just focus on one of them. But, your paddle length, I think that's just, I've heard, like, it needs to be a shaka over your head. I've heard some people say that, it could just be like right here. I think mine's probably somewhere up in here. If I'm standing and my paddle's on the ground and the T-grip's right there. But, you could call somebody like Jim Terrell, and all those guys are completely approachable. You could call those guys and, you almost think like they're gods in the world of paddling. But when you pick up the phone and call those guys, they're going to answer the phone. And these are, Olympians, these guys that are in the sport.
Best in the world,
yeah, and they can give you a very technical answer. I wish that I could be more technical about that, but I think that I have just kind of found something that is kind of my happy place.
Well, if you think about it, you see so many people that just bend way down.
Yeah.
Just a lot of twists and a lot of bend, and obviously you don't need that to go fast. But the exchange of that is you're using a lot more upper body potential. So I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's learn it. And try a lot of things and try to figure out what's best for you.
Yeah.
I know for long distance stuff, if you're going to be out there all day, every day, for a week at a time, you want to kind of use your core and lower back as much as possible and not use your arms.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a whole different game, just like running is. It's not a whole lot different, or cycling or any kind of ultra endurance sport. You've got it. It's a different approach for depending on what kind of sport you're into, or what kind of activity. So you think about the race that you put on, the Chattajack. It's a 31-mile race. Mm-hmm. Versus what we've got going on this weekend, which is the 10K race. Mm-hmm. So 6 miles versus 31 miles, the same athlete might take the approach of each race completely different.
Yeah,
might be different paddle, might be different board, whatever.
John Batson, I believe, is coming this weekend, and he got third in men's 14 at Chattajack. Larry Kane was first. Bart Desvart was second, and John Batson, and the three of those guys were together maybe up until like the last mile and a half. And so, it's definitely something that you'll have guys that could do really well in a 10K, and then later in the season, as you get closer to October, some of those guys will start doing more miles. I'm sure John will, and Larry, all those guys, they'll adjust their training to get ready for being able to paddle hard for 5 hours instead of 1 hour.
But isn't it safe to say that they'll probably change equipment if you're not flipping around a buoy fast? If you're not sprinting, basically for 10K, it's kind of a sprint for you guys, right?
I think they'll be like John's probably going to race. He'll race his sprint this weekend, and that's what he used. That's what I think Larry was on that as well. So it's pretty similar. It's just a very narrow board. Those are probably 22-inch wide boards, and they'll, even if they're doing buoy turns, they're going to be a little bit conservative when they're making those buoy turns, and sometimes these guys will fall on a buoy turn, and which is fun. It really throws a unique twist into things. Like you've got a draft pack, and you may just be like, okay, this is how we're 4 miles into a 6 mile race, and this is like pretty locked in. This is how we're going to finish, and we're all going to be gentlemen. Nobody's going to pass anybody, if they're pulling or get across the finish line, and then all of a sudden somebody falls, and it's just like, oh wow, okay, here's a unique twist on things. And that can happen when people are on a 22-inch board and they're doing a 180-degree turnaround and buoy. But to me, that's just like that is a huge rush, and there's so much adrenaline when you're in a race like that, and we're an inch or two behind the guy in front. And there have been times in a race like that where I've just told those guys that I'm with, I'm like, thanks, man, I really love like what we're doing right now, and this is what, and they do as well. And then there's also some funny stuff in there too, like Jeremy Whitted, he'll start asking questions because he starts trying to hear your voice, so that way he can make a move, and you just don't answer him or whatever, or make something up, tell him like your shoulder hurts or something like that.
Lance, I was we got time.
Let's see.
I lose time. We try to keep these with 20 to 25 minutes, but
We're getting close. We're right around 28 right now.
okay. So thanks a ton, man. This great to get you back after. Again, for sure, maybe closer to Chattajack, perhaps. We're gonna have to change the venue because they're opening up on Mondays. So either we come here on Sunday, or I think I like the idea of maybe doing something outdoors. We've got a pretty cool outdoor deck that we could have it on at our place, or
That'd be awesome.
be nice to have some spot that we could overlook the river or whatever. So we'll find another place at some point.
So OddStory is going to be open on Mondays now. That's bad news for us, but really good news for all the consumers.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not next Monday. Next Monday's the Bessie Smith Strut.
Okay.
So the whole road is closed down next
Yeah.
Monday, and then the following Monday.
Next Monday we are at my place on the
You'll
back
have to
deck.
because you won't be able to get in.
Yeah, so we'll let you know. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah,
Good seeing
absolutely.
you.
Thank
Yep.
you guys.
Thank you.
See you next week.